Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today, we're going to take a look at a band that has been requested many times here from a lot of folks. A band with a pretty ridiculously large discography that going in, I thought that I owned everything that they have ever done, but as it turns out, I'm missing a handful of albums, probably 4 or 5 thereabouts. We're talking about Motorhead, of course, the great band from the UK. All right, whether you call them heavy metal or punk or hard rock or just plain old rock and roll, because of course that's what Lemmy always said. We just play rock and roll, right? So of course, Motorhead formed in the late '70s, mid late '70s. Okay, Lemmy, of course, bass player and vocalist from Hawkwind. All right, left Hawkwind, formed the band Motorhead. The name of the band came from a song that he wrote while he was in Hawkwind. All right, so he goes from space rock to this fast and furious, bluesy, speedy, thrashy kind of music, which, quite frankly, never really fit neatly into any genre. But most people, it's very rare that you find someone who doesn't like Motorhead. Most people like them in some fashion, okay? But I very rarely have I met anybody who said, God, I can't stand Motorhead. So anyway, I kind of just was like torn. Do I rank all the ones I have? Do I just do the top 10 of the ones I have? I decided I'm just going to rank them all. Just keep in mind that a lot of the bottom half of the list are a lot of the more recent albums, and recent by the last 20, 30 years. And I just don't have as strong as a connection with those as I do with some of the, the earlier ones, which, like I said, I grew up with. So the order of these could change anytime. I don't dislike any of them. I don't think Motorhead ever released a bad album, in my opinion. Just some are more successful than others, and some, we've latched onto more than others. So I'm going to go first with Overnight Sensation on the bottom. Overnight Sensation from 1996. All right. Good album. But man, these guys were pumping out albums every year, every other year, it seems. And that's why I was amazed that I didn't have some. But sometimes you have these bands that are just so prolific, just release album after album after album. You just, with all the other stuff going on, all the other albums to buy, sometimes you miss some. So, but that's a solid record, as is this one, 1916. Okay. 1916 was from 1991. All right, here you have Motorhead as the four-piece, Lemmy, Wizzo, Wurzel, and Filthy. All right. Good songs. Again, a lot of these albums, a lot of people, have always said that Motorhead were kind of like AC/DC, that, they've released a ton of albums, a lot of them very similar from each other. They had a formula. They didn't stray from it, right? It worked for them. Next up, I'm going to go with Sacrifice. From, what year was Sacrifice? In 1995. Great cover. A lot of great covers on these. Again, the band's still working as a four-piece. Sex and Death, Over Your Shoulder, War for War. Good stuff on there. Next up, we're going to go with Snakebite Love from 1998. Pumped out a lot of albums in the 90s. All right, here the band's down to the trio. Okay. Mickey D on drums right there. Fantastic drummer. Good album, I think. Next up, we're going to go with We Are, Motorhead. Of course they are, right? Who else would they be? From 2000. I love that cover, too. Always did. What do we got on here? Stay Out of Jail, See Me Burning, Wake the Dead, One More Fucking Time, right? Good stuff. Next up, I'm going to go with Hammered. I dig Hammered. Hammered is pretty metallic albums. This is Phil Campbell, Mickey D, and Lemmy, of course. Probably the second best trio that the guys had after that kind of classic first trio. Walk a Crooked Mile, Brave New World. You got the bonus track, The Game, which is actually a great song, which was written and recorded for Triple H of World Wrestling Entertainment, the wrestler, right? What else? Kill the World, No Remorse. Down the line. Good metallic album. They've got sometimes their music is kind of grungy and bluesy, and other times very metallic. That's one of the more metallic albums. Rock and Roll, another strong one. Okay, Rock and Roll is from 1987. All right, title track is great. You just got Eat the Rich, Killer, Stone Deaf in the USA. Next up, I'm going to go with the last thing I did, which is Black Magic. All right. I'm sorry, Bad Magic. And this was released in 2015. All right. So, Lemmy Obviously, fairly sick at this point, but a pretty strong album, I think. I listened to this quite a bit when it came out. You know, Victory or Die, Thunder and Lightning, The Devil, Evil Eye, Shoot Out All Your Lights. You know, considering that this was not Lemmy at his best physically, I still think that he and the band delivered pretty well on that one. And if that's going to be their last album ever, which obviously it is, not a bad way to go out. All right, next up I'm going to go with Bastards. Die, you bastards. All right. All the way back from 1993. On Your Feet, On Your Knees. Death or Glory is a great song. I Am the Sword. Born to Raise Hell. Liar. Good stuff on here. Again, a lot of these albums just, they're all very similar. Similar feel, right? Next up, I'm going to go to the debut from 1977. I know there's some people that might rank this higher. I was never a huge fan of this album. I think they're still kind of figuring it out here. But, you know, you got the title track. You got Lost Johnny, White Line Fever. You know, their version of Train Kept It Rolling. You know, it's fun. It's just, I think this is just very rough and raw. And I just kind of like the albums that came after it, you know, better from that, you know, original lineup. All right, next up, I'm going to go with Orgasmatron. This is a pretty strong record. So, of course, you know, Orgasmatron comes on the heels of Another Perfect Day, all right, with Brian Robertson. I think this is a pretty strong record. A lot of great things. You know, title track is kick-ass. A lot of good stuff on here. It's a good sounding album, too. I think this was for a lot of people who maybe were a little turned off by the Another Perfect Day album, which was a bit more melodic. This is back to the kind of grimy Motorhead that most people loved, right? And so that ranks pretty high for me, as does this album, Inferno. So this is probably one of my favorite latter period albums. This is from 2004. This is a very heavy album, I think, and some really great tracks. You know, you got Terminal Show, you got The Great Killers, Life's a Bitch, all right, In the Name of Tragedy. The guitars are cranked way up on this. Lemmy's bass is just booming, all right. His vocals are ferocious, and not every, you know, some people are hit or miss with Lemmy's vocals. I think he's got one of the most unique vocal expressions ever. I remember, you know, they were the first band I ever saw live. I went to see Motorhead and Ozzy's Blizzard of Oz at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York in 1981, and Motorhead opened, right? And that was the first band I had ever seen, you know, first real rock metal band I'd ever seen, and I was just blown away by the power there. We was sat in the 8th row. Lemmy was right in front of us. You know, he was up there with his Rickenbacker bass with the mic coming down. It's just, you know, it's just like, holy cow, what is this stuff? Next up, I'm going to go with Iron Fist. So now we're getting to the, you know, the classic stuff. This is, of course, from 1982. You know, the title track is great. What else? I'm the Doctor, Go to Hell, Loser, Sex and Outrage. A lot of good stuff on here. Maybe not the best of the Fast Eddie Clarke era, but certainly up there. All right, number 4. That's number 5. Coming in number 4, I'm going to go with Another Perfect Day. Okay, which was released in 1983. So Fast Eddie Clarke is out. Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy fame is in. I dig this album. I remember buying this on vinyl when it came out, and I was like, holy shit. This is, you know, Back at the Funny Farm, and I Got Mine, Tales of Glory, Die You Bastard. A lot of great stuff on here. I love the guitar playing because I'm a big Robertson fan from his Thin Lizzy days, and I think for me, the slightly more melodic nature of this album just worked really well. But you know what? This album is still pretty grimy and heavy and thrashy. That's why I never understood people were in outrage. You got to wonder if people were more outraged that Fast Eddie Clarke was gone and didn't bother to listen to this. Because really, this is not that different sounding of a Motorhead album. I never understood the shit that it's taken over the years. I think it's a fine album. Coming in at number 3, we're going to go with Bomber. All right, Bomber, of course, from 1979. Classic album. Lemmy, Filthy Animal, and Fast Eddie Clarke, right? You got some absolute classics on here. Dead Men Tell No Tales. Sweet Revenge, Sharpshooter, Poison, Lawman, right? Step Down, title track. A lot of great stuff on here. This is a classic for a reason. Number 2, I'm going to go with Ace of Spades from 1980. which many will pick as their favorite, and I get that. Title track, awesome. Love Me Like a Reptile, awesome. Right? Shoot You in the Back, Fast and Loose, God, Jailbait, Fire, Fire, Dance, Bite the Bullet. A lot of classic stuff on here. Top to bottom, a great album. But I gotta tell you, sometimes it's just the way it happens. You go throughout your life and your favorite album by a band turns out to be the one that you got first, right? So for me, that was 1979's Overkill. Okay. And some of you may be asking, Pete, how come you didn't wear a Motorhead shirt today? Well, because the only Motorhead shirt I own is the one from this album, and I figured that would have given it all away. Because so many of you accused me of doing that in the past. Pete always wears the shirt that's his number one pick, and he gives it all away before we get to the end. So I decided, you know what, was not going to wear the Overkill shirt. You got my Sad Wings of Destiny instead. But back to the Overkill album. Yeah, for me, this is just chock full of really memorable songs. It's got a lot of different flavors on it. I think, the title track is obviously killer. Love the double bass drumming and that. Love the riffs. It's just fast and furious. Stay Clean, great song. All right. Capricorn. Love the moodiness of that song. Great tune. No Class, obviously. Damage Case, Tear You Down. Metropolis, another favorite song of mine. Limb from Limb. All right. I Won't Pay Your Price. I'll Be Your Sister. Just a lot of great songs on here. Killer guitar work from Fast Eddie Clarke. I don't know, just for me, love the bass playing too. It needs to be said how great a bass player Lemmy was as well. All right, he was originally a guitar player, so he kind of attacked the bass like a guitar, but it really worked in this band. I think all three guys just firing on all cylinders. There they are in the back. I don't know. It's just always been my favorite Overkill album, as much as Overkill album. Overkill has always been my favorite Motorhead album for all these years. Even with a lot of other strong albums, they've never knocked this one off its perch, for me anyway. But I know some people might favor Ace of Spades or Bomber or whatever, and that's totally cool, right? Because with so many albums, a lot of people are going to hear these differently and have different attachments to them. So it is what it is, right? So there you have my favorite of the day. I'm not going to bother going through the list again. I'll name off the top ones. I got Overkill at number 1. Ace of Spades, number 2. Bomber, number 3. Another Perfect Day, number 4. And my number 5 is Iron Fist, followed by Inferno, Orgasmatron, and, so on and so forth after that. So there you have it. So curious to see what you guys think and how you rank the Motorhead catalog, right? And remember, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. A lot of great albums, and maybe a lot very similar, but some of the classic ones are really classic, I think. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So what's coming up? Not really sure what the next couple of days are going to bring. Well, actually, no, I am. So tomorrow, getting together with my buddy Steve Fleck, we're going to deliver top 10 songs for 38 Special and Toto, so you don't want to miss those. Coming up this weekend, so I've been chatting with Steve Keeler from Rock Fantasy. We are going to, via the Zoom or Skype, however we work it out, we're going to get together also with Chris Allo to rank the studio albums of Metallica. All right, Steve and I are also going to do top 10 songs from Opeth, top 10 songs from Halloween, all right? And plus I've got other stuff. I'm going to try and get to the studio albums, rank the studio albums of Dio, Vandergraaf Generator, all sorts of stuff coming up over the coming days. And Jeff Younger and I are going to do Fleetwood Mac, ranking the albums too. Just got to pick a date for that. So trying to schedule, obviously, because we all have to be social distancing and we're in lockdown. So I can't just have people come over to do shows anymore. So, or at least for the time being. So, and everybody really wants to take part in what's going on here because everybody's sick of being sitting at home. So I'm going to be doing a lot of Skype and Zoom kind of co-hosting things with various folks. Should be fun, right? So stay tuned. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.